Hello, everybody. Dr. Nadia Butawi here. I'm so excited to be here. And it says here an error occurred. Wait a moment, then try again. Okay, let's do this again. Okay, we are live, I think. Let's see if there's any number here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Healthcare Lunch Talk. We're live here with a very special guest, Dr. Ricky Patel. He would say remove the doctor, but uh, hold on a second. I'm getting a message here. It looks like this event was canceled on LinkedIn. Really, LinkedIn? Re-add it. Okay, let me do it and re-add it. So technical hurdles, but we got this. Continue to LinkedIn. Let's do it again. The good news, LinkedIn audience is very forgiving. And they know
Handy.
if you're going, live. I'm gonna need some reactions here from anyone on LinkedIn that's seeing this live. Please let us know. Let's see. It says remove this. Has created cancel. Hold on, give me 1 second here. Edit. Thank you for your patience, everyone. That's the thing about going live. All right. Most of our audience is on LinkedIn, Ricky, huh? Please, can you please put in the chat where you're connecting from, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube. So the alternative up to you, Ricky, if you'd like to reset it for a different 15-minute differential this way we can meet the folks on LinkedIn. What do you think? Can you see it on LinkedIn?
I can't see it on LinkedIn. It keeps saying the host will start the event soon. Okay. So I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, it gave me an error that it was canceled on LinkedIn, but I didn't cancel it.
Yeah, the event's still there. I mean, we could try logging out of the whole event.
I think it's on now. It's giving me a check mark. Yay, success. How many PhDs does it take to fix a glitch on LinkedIn? I'm glad I wouldn't do it with anybody else. So let's restart. I'm here today with a very special guest, Ricky Patel. Ricky has a PhD in neuroscience, and he's very active on LinkedIn. He's the founder of Point Biosciences, and he's on a mission to simplify science to both investors and biotech companies. He also the founder of a group called the Ph.D. Pack, which a lot of PhDs are part of that, and I really look forward to reading his reflections newsletter on Sundays. So that's my little dose of hope on Sundays on the entrepreneurial journey. Welcome, Ricky.
Thanks, Nadia. I'm looking forward to another chat. I know we were talking before, and the first time we had a 15-minute intro, it was meant to be. I think I booked on your calendar. We spoke to nearly an hour and a half, which was just
exactly.
Amazing.
So that gives you an idea how interesting Ricky is to talk to. So, Ricky, in your own words, how would you introduce yourself to our audience?
Well, so I would say I'm a molecular neuroscientist by training. So as you mentioned, Nadia, I did a PhD in clinical neuroscience. And then I would say I was on the journey of finding purpose. And I think I found that in entrepreneurship or as a life as a founder. So I'm the academic that became the founder, I think is a good way of capping it off.
That's awesome. I'm always interested to find, how was that transition from being an academic in neuroscience into, becoming a founder and an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it happened quite suddenly for me. So I had a lot going on in life at the time and a real divide between sense of purpose and belonging, and then what my training was in and what I thought was the only thing. So I, as many academics or PhDs, had the understanding that your thesis defines your future, and the title and subject of your PhD or master's thesis defines what you shall go into. And this really did not settle well with me. Life took me in a different direction. I began unpackaging a lot, which, as you mentioned, I reflect on every Sunday very openly about my mental health, well-being, and life as a founder. And it was actually during job interviews that the same task kept coming up, which was, hey, Ricky, we need some assistance understanding these biotechs in this space. Could you provide some information? And that was it. It was actually a managing director. I was quite bold in an interview, and I said at stage 3, I told the directors that I'm thinking about opening a company and running a startup. I don't really recommend that during a job interview. However, they took me to the final call. They go, we think you should speak with our MD. The managing director had a call with me, and then after thinking about it on the weekend, he emailed back saying, I think you should go and do it, because it will gnaw away at you at the back of your mind for the rest of your life that you didn't try, and you may be onto something here. I do think you are. And then at the end, I was reading this. I remember sitting on the sofa, and I was not in a good headspace mentally, feeling just not okay. And then at the end, he ended it with, you're destined for great things. And I was like, just started welling up on the sofa and cried. And I have to do this then. I have to at least try and give it a crack. And yeah, it will be August. It will be a year on the entrepreneurial journey. And the learning curve has just been incredible. I think that's the intellectual stimulation that I, without a shadow of a doubt, needed post PhD.
Yeah, and I think PhDs have the skill set to become entrepreneurs. Their critical thinking, their planning, their hypothesis testing, and all of those skill sets, you can extrapolate them to the business world. I had similar, something that's on the back of my mind for years. It took you less than a year, so kudos to you to finding your mission and passion early on. For me, it was always like the entrepreneurial thing was in the back of my mind. And it wasn't until I was running a genetics lab at the University of Pittsburgh. We were highly prolific as a lab, publishing in high impact journals and so on. Yet, on asthma, 2 of my kids had asthma. And I saw those discoveries, they're not making it to the people who need it the most, to my kid, to helping my kids. And that got me onto what's called translation sciences. How do you move those discoveries, those technologies, and translate them into solutions to solve problems in the market or in the clinic? And it wasn't enough, so I did an executive MBA in healthcare. But again, that thing that's on the back of your mind, it stays with you. So make sure you listen, like you take time to listen to your internal dialogue. And I know that you reflect on those, ups and downs in your reflection newsletter. So can you tell us, like, how was it like, the roller coaster for you over the past year?
Yeah, so I think a good starting point is why I do the newsletter. So every Sunday I found, as a founder, it was useful to kind of see how my week went. And because I was writing on LinkedIn, actually, I'm making a post tomorrow. Tomorrow is 1 year of me writing on LinkedIn.
Nice.
And I want to show the impressions of had I not have done anything compared to trying.
If I may take a moment, everybody, follow Ricky and check his post tomorrow. His posts go deep. I can tell you this much.
It will definitely be, quite deep. It's been great though. But yeah, going back to your question, every Sunday as a founder, I started to write a post. How did my week go? What did I achieve? What did I learn though? Because as a PhD as you know, Nadia, in the lab, you're doing so much, and in academia, more is more and more is better, that you don't have time to sit and reflect. Because that time sitting and reflecting, people look at you and they'll be like, well, why aren't you doing more experiments? Why don't you do some data analysis or read some papers? It's always filled with something. And I was on a mission to not fill it with something, but fill it with growth. And every Sunday began with, okay, what did I learn? What went wrong? What went right? I looked at all my data from the
Mm-hmm.
week, and I really looked to understand it and then make small changes. We're
Yeah.
talking the
Yeah.
following week. And then that eventually became the Sunday Reflection newsletter. So it has been a roller coaster of extreme thrills. I
Nice.
think every day is thrilling, but also sometimes the lows of the lows. And I sit
Yeah.
there and I'm about to put my trainers on to go to the gym. And I just go look at myself and I go, why am I doing this? Like, why am I doing this? And then in an instant, that why, the answers come in many drones and they flood into my mind. And I'm like, oh, right, okay, this is just a moment. And I go,
Yeah.
this is a moment and that is okay. And then I put my trainers on and get moving. So,
That's
yeah, it's
great.
part of the journey, right?
Yeah, it is. And I think if I go back to your, aha moment of knowing that I'm supposed to be doing this and you acted on it, I think having that, taking action, and it's okay to fail, that it's part of the journey. You're going to have more downs than ups, and having the mental resilience to, know that this is temporary and you still have your North Star, and this is like stepping stones towards your goal. I think reframing from like the short term to the long term, I think it's very empowering as an entrepreneur. It's still hard, but empowering.
Yeah. I mean, that is the biggest one, the short to the long term, because in academia, I think experiment to experiment or n number to n number, not even experiment to
Yeah,
experiment. It's just the same experiment, but replicate. Can you replicate it?
yeah,
Whereas in entrepreneurship, I need to think n number to n number, experiment to experiment, and then completely different department to department. Like you're working 1 second in sales as an entrepreneur, and then the next
yeah.
second you're working in marketing,
Mm-hmm.
or you're perfecting your storytelling, or I'm having a conversation about a deep neuroscience based biotech with someone and conveying that. So I'm going back to being the molecular neuroscientist academic. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's that transition. And the way I think of it is as a slider, as if on the old record players where the music, the volume was up and down.
Yeah,
And the slider is like the transition you have to make
between.
into complexity or into more of an overview. And I said this
Mm-hmm.
on the fika I did with Donnie in
Yeah.
January.
Mm-hmm.
It's like research and academia as a PhD is looking down the microscope, whereas entrepreneurship is looking through the telescope at all of the
Yeah.
stars, the bigger picture.
Yeah, I see almost like the 30,000. You have to be able to zoom out at 30,000 foot view and be able to go right into the details on a short notice and switch between the two and pull those different hats
Yeah.
on a very short notice. So, talking about point science, tell me more about it. Analytics. What do you do, and how do you help your target audience? Who your target
Yeah. So,
audience first?
yes. So, point science analytics started to break down and help understand and digest
Mm-hmm.
biotechs which are out there for investors and consultants. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
assisting investors, consultants, family offices with early stage, and we're talking very early stage technical due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a case of it's split up into two segments. We've got the reports and the consulting, neuroscience consulting segments. So the reports
Mm-hmm.
are top 5 biotechs that they may have an interest in,
Mm-hmm.
that they wish to invest in, or that they are working with, and to formulate a bullet point format report of the deep science conveyed into an easy to understand, digestible manner, but also the C suite as well, and their backgrounds, for anything to do with finance and media releases. So it's all in one place and
Mm-hmm.
easy to present and understand. Now, there was a major caveat with that is I'm the essentially the AI compiling everything through my training, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having worked 80-hour weeks in academia, I know it's not very good for me. And then the idea behind AI coming into this, so we're raising pre-seed to have an AI platform built which can to conduct this for its users on a subscription basis, to make it scalable.
You read my
And
mind because I was
yeah,
thinking AI. I'm like, Ricky, how are you going to scale this? If you're doing it, you're the bottleneck. So you have
yeah,
to find a way that it's scalable for for the larger audience.
yeah, it's exactly that, because the scalability, actually it didn't even come to me in terms of scalability, because that's a very business
Yeah.
sort of lingo, right? It came to me
Hmm.
in a sense of, I'm going to be very tired and not okay.
Yeah.
And then it was a
Hmm.
case of, okay, how can I minimize that and make things efficient? And then
Yeah.
that is scalability in terms of the AI. And then the second aspect is assisting investors and family offices with these neuroscience or neurotech based consulting calls.
Hmm.
So any pitch decks that they may have in the field of neuroscience and neurotech,
Hmm.
I'm happy to have a look at and identify red flags, future problems, or even
Yeah.
if there's a need for more data. And the idea behind this is to de-risk
Yeah.
things at an early stage with technical expertise to
Mhm.
assist them,
That's awesome.
and biotechs as well. Yeah.
That's great. So I think was it this week that Neuralink got the FDA approval to do a study, the first study for the brain implants.
I think it was, yeah, they've been approved phase 1, haven't they? Yes, yes.
Yeah. So if you are into that space and you need some subject matter expertise, reach out to Ricky. You can he can be reached at on his profile. You can book a call with him, and at Point Science Analytics. Um, I like that the fact that you found a problem to solve before you developed the solution. And I saw it was the other way around for a lot of startups. They have a technology and then they go out to the market and try to find a problem to solve with that solution. How was your experience on validating the need for your solution? How did you go about that?
Yeah, this is the funny bit, because as I was reading content on LinkedIn from serial entrepreneurs, people who have made exits, and they always say, look, start with the problem, build your
Yeah.
solution around it.
Mm-hmm.
My problem started from this interview, or these sets of interviews I was doing, and I saw the same problem coming up. This is actually the tier 1 report on the website, which is the interview I did just with the information redacted. And it was a second report I did from a management consulting firm, the same problem. It's just on a singular biotech level rather than multiple biotechs
Mm-hmm.
wanting information. They wanted it on a single biotech and more of a deeper dive. This ended up being the tier 2 report on the website. So I had, before the company was even formed and the idea was moving around in my mind and building, I'd already had validation of this product that yes, there is a need of these reports out there
Mm-hmm.
once people understand what it's about, or they want something simplified. And then it was a case of when the traction idea came in, the AI platform and raising, I started to take calls in open-ended interviews with investors, life science consultants, biotech CEOs as well. And I really wanted to know, okay, what do you currently do? I had a set of questions I would always ask. What do you currently do to understand either your competitor in biotech or
Yeah.
a potential biotech you're investing in? How much do you invest in this space in terms of hours or capital and money? And then what would you like from a platform? What would you specifically want? And so I've been making these notes and acquiring all of the data. And then by the end, when I suggest the solution or mention the platform we're building, it always ends in, oh, we'd love to try the MVP. Could you put us down for being one of the people to give this a test run for you and feedback? And
Mm-hmm.
so with these open-ended interviews, I've also had or began to build up a list of those who want to use the platform. And so that is all included in the deck and to show investors. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think, yeah, having traction and data that you show that there is a need for your solution, that you're solving a problem, and people are willing to try it. That's very attractive to investors when you are pre-revenue, meaning that you have a way to get to customers, to acquire customers, and they want to test your solution. Have you thought of putting a price tag on the MVP, just so
I
that you can test it out?
Yeah, I have thought about putting a price tag on the MVP, and it's something I'm still deliberating about. I was thinking more the second iteration of the MVP, the first one
Mm-hmm.
to be an actual true test of the blueprint, or the, let's say,
Nice.
the steel structure of the house. And then as I
Mm-hmm.
start to lay the bricks of the house, be like, okay, we've got something a little bit more solid here. Now we can start
Yeah.
charging. So yeah, I fluctuate though. It's something, yeah, that I fluctuate between by saying at the start or later on or something. But it's definitely something I have considered.
Yeah,
Yes.
think of it as an experiment that you're
Yeah.
testing that and their willingness to pay, and it gives you like some sort of benchmark in terms of pricing and so on. So that leads me to the next thing. You've been part of the Microsoft hub.
Yes.
Can you tell us
So
more about that?
this was again when the whole idea of scalability came and AI. So it's
Mm-hmm.
important to note I don't have a background in AI or anything like a
Mm-hmm.
CTO. That's not my technical expertise. However, my neuroscience understanding and molecular, as a molecular neuroscientist, fits in very
Mm-hmm.
well. And I was looking around for, I actually started at AWS and working towards their accelerators if they can
Mm-hmm.
help with their credits or anything. And then I just kept going around in circles. And somebody mentioned to me, they go, apply to the big three cloud providers. So AWS, Google, Microsoft. AWS, I was running around. Google, I think, was a summer intake only. And this was
Okay.
approaching Q3, Q4 last year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went on the Microsoft for Startups website. At this point, I'd been writing content on LinkedIn for like 3 months.
Yeah.
I just filled out an application. It's super easy. You can fill out your application via your LinkedIn profile.
Mm-hmm.
So you connect everything up. They have all the information of who you are, what you're
Yeah.
doing, what you're building. And I went in at the second tier. So the first tier is if you just have an idea, no company open, no website.
Mm-hmm.
Second one is you're looking to build an MVP, you have a company, a website, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's a growth tiers as well. And it's just been brilliant because within a week they responded. I got the email saying, "Oh,
Nice.
congratulations, you've been accepted into the Founders Hub. You get all these benefits, so LinkedIn Premium for 3 months on like the recruiter side, if you're a recruiter or sales
Mm-hmm.
navigator." So I managed to sample all of these like
Yeah.
expensive products, which would be for a startup. I mean,
Yeah.
£150 a month is a lot for something like that. And then one key aspect has been the technical calls.
Mm-hmm.
So as a solo founder delving into tech, it's also been the resources that they provide where I can read more into tech and AI, machine
Yeah.
learning, and their services on Azure, but also book calls with software engineers and the
Nice.
Microsoft app consultants. And
Mm-hmm.
as they understand the project more and more, they pass it on and design the architecture for the actual build. So the outsourced software company that I have, who are ready to go and I've been building this relationship with for the last 8 or 9 months,
Mm-hmm.
understand the project through and through and
Nice.
every aspect of it. So this has all been factored into the raise to then factor in having or hiring an in-house CTO, full stack developer, and the outsourced software team that
Yeah.
I'm looking to work with assist with this transition. So it all feels, it's like a bridge. I love my
That's the
analogies. You'll
bridge. Yeah.
notice it's
Mm-hmm.
like a bridge. And along the bridge, as I'm walking along this like shaky bridge, there's slats of wood that are missing. And all of these people are like
You
the
fill
filling
them in
elements of
as you
this
go.
wood. So
Mm-hmm.
as I'm walking, I'm not falling through the gaps. And it's brilliant. Yeah, it's
That's
absolutely
awesome.
brilliant.
That's awesome. You beautifully described entrepreneurship. You kind of thread with like missing information, and you fill that out by having the right support system around you, whether it's the technical support or even other entrepreneurs going through your journey. Because that's one thing that I found. My immediate circle didn't get the challenges that entrepreneurs face.
Yeah.
Have you had such experience, like with whether your family or friends, what you go through, entrepreneurship? Do they get it? How do you go about that?
Yeah. I mean, I am fortunate that I stay with very, very me individuals. And what I mean by that is that the mindset is very much like me. So
Yes.
I've had quite a natural filter of life where I think the wrong people in my life who didn't understand what I'm doing, why I'm doing what I'm doing, or anything along these lines have just dissipated. And the only people remaining, fortunately for me, are the ones that go, when I'm having a bad day, and I'm human, they will happen. They will happen sometimes frequently, or they will happen scarcely, but
Mm-hmm.
they will be present. These individuals, both on LinkedIn
Yeah.
or in my life as a person in person, have picked me up and have gone, okay, this was a bit of a setback. That's annoying.
Yeah.
Let's think of a way we can actually make it happen. Let's think of how it can be done.
Yeah.
They move forwards. They move the pin forwards no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a very niche mindset. So I've always had this, and I didn't really fit in academia because I was always very ambitious. I wanted to try those experiments people didn't want to give a go to.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted always a little bit more from me, myself, and I. And a lot of the time it can be, you can have a dark cloud over you in academia where they go, look, we don't do it like that here. You probably
Yeah.
shouldn't do that. You don't apply
More
for that. I
rigid.
remember being,
Yeah.
yeah, don't apply for that junior fellowship. Like, you won't get it. It's just an instant closed door straight away. Whereas now I'm super ambitious with things. And that's
Mm-hmm.
actually attracting the right people, showing my uniqueness and making that freely available for people to see in both my writing and my speaking
Yeah.
has meant that only the
That's what
like-minded
the right
individuals
ones. Mm-hmm.
have stayed around, and even more so, the like-minded individuals contribute and jump on board. They're the first to say, hey, are you okay? What's going on? Or,
Yeah.
hey, can we assist in any way? And it's incredible. It's brilliant.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I think, yeah, being proactive and not only building, but maintaining your network that will help you to go where you want to be like 3, 4, 5 years from now. And
Yeah.
it's okay at some point, we have chapters in our lives, and not everybody is meant to be, in every single chapter. And it's okay to go with that and to be at peace that, you've contributed to their life some in one way, shape, or form, and they did the same. And
Mm.
sometimes people move on and you're gone to a different chapter, and you embrace the journey and enjoy it and be present. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
It was just to quickly build on that. It was a friend of mine a long time ago that said to me, he goes, people are in our lives for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. And that really stuck with me. And I've really started to think about that. I go, well, that's really true, because when I was a kid at school, it could be during the summer holidays, you have a really good friend, which is a
Yeah,
season. A reason, well, during my master's or PhD, which was a
yeah,
stressful period, in particular my PhD during the pandemic, or it's a lifetime. I've had childhood friends since
yeah,
school. So yeah, that's something that I really, really think about even now in business and entrepreneurship, because it's
yeah,
brilliant.
exactly. And I think, adding value to people's lives, whether it's a short chapter or a long chapter, and keep good impressions wherever you go. Don't burn bridges, because you never know. You elevate people sometime in the future, somebody else will open doors for you. So, because I believe in karma, like good karma goes around.
Hmm.
And talking about networks, you're the admin for the PhD Tech.
Yes.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah. So this was just as I left academia and started writing on LinkedIn. I was looking around. So I classically studied LinkedIn for a good two,
Hmm.
3 months prior to beginning writing on it.
Yeah,
And I noticed that
now
there
we're bigger.
wasn't this sort of space
Hmm.
for PhDs to speak to each other, get advice, life outside of academia, life inside of academia. So I just thought, let me just create a group. And
Yeah,
I would essentially cold message PhDs or PhD candidates and students and say, hey, would you like to join this group that I'm forming? And it's proved to be a good resource. Like, people drop little events that they're doing. Maybe, I know, Nadia, you post in there about anything you're doing which
Yeah.
would be of assistance to PhDs.
Totally.
I post in there, and others as well say, oh, look, there's these job opportunities or this potential consulting program being ran over summer. And it's just proving to be a good space for them to network and have this guidance there as well. I'm slowly starting to move away from it and transition away, but because my focus is point science analytics and different ventures down the line. But it's something really close to my heart because, like, as you know, we were those PhDs. There's in
Yeah.
academia, in the lab, like running our gels or whatever we were doing and being like,
Yeah.
oh, what does this mean? Or I'm confused by what that means. Or what
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship? No, maybe I can't do that with my skills. But our skills were so perfectly suited to it, like
They
incredibly
are
suited.
like the critical thinking, the planning for your experiment, the sourcing of your, comparing prices, analyzing data, writing about it. When you're writing a paper or poster or what have you, or presenting at conferences, you're telling the story of the problem you're trying to solve, which is very, very similar to whenever you're pitching. The format may be a little different, but the overall skill set is transferable.
Yeah, it completely is. And I say this to many in the early days of being on LinkedIn. I used to take a lot of calls with PhD candidates in particular,
Mhm.
or those that have completed their PhDs. And I go, look, think of it like this. Your thesis is quite literally a story.
It
If you
is.
notice when you
Mhm.
compile your thesis, chapter one isn't always the first experiment you started with in your PhD. It's what fits the story the best, and then
Exactly.
it moves forwards and moves on. And so that's quite a key point, because now in entrepreneurship, as we know, everything is storytelling. The
It is.
ability to articulate one's words
Mm-hmm.
in and convey thoughts and feelings.
Yeah,
So the startup is funded, or you actually hit the investor with that impact feeling, is so
exactly.
key and so
Mm-hmm.
paramount. It's no
Yeah,
longer a case of a bombardment of data.
it's
It's a
not.
case of how can you articulate thoughts, feelings, emotions, and convey them over so the individual really feels it to their core, whoever they may
Exactly.
be.
Yeah. For our audience here, one of the my favorite storytelling framework is by Don Miller. He has a book called Story Brand, highly recommended. And you that framework you can use in everything. Like whether you're selling, for your interviews. When you're interviewing, you're selling your skill set and trying to
Yeah.
convince whoever you're interviewing you that you're a good fit. When you're pitching, when you're writing a paper or a poster or a conference. So if you leverage that framework, it's really powerful. It's 7 steps. The idea is a lot of people like criticize that people are getting shorter attention span. I would argue otherwise. Why do we binge watch Netflix if we have a short attention span? Because they use storytelling frameworks to keep you hooked, that you want more. If you're pitching to an investor, it's that first date and you want them to want more, to learn more about your company or product or service. Same thing in sales, same thing in marketing, and so on. So his idea is that, newsflash, it's not about you. It's
Yeah.
the hero in the story is the character, is that person you wanted to help. It's your target avatar, your target customer or key stakeholder that you want to convince who has a problem. That's number two. And then you are the guide, that's your solution, who has the abilities and the capabilities to give them a simple plan that they can follow. And then if they follow your plan, here is the upside. And if they don't, here is the downside. So when you do frame it in a way that it's about them, not about you, and how much value you can bring to them, and simplify it. Don't give them too many call to actions. Give them one, two, three very easy wins that they can apply to have a flavor. It could be your MVP, you put it in their hands. It could be, a questionnaire or something online, just to get like a simple, no more than 3 steps that they can do and get quick wins. And then you position yourself as the person who can solve their problems. And everything else, whether it's pitching, whether it's a paper, whether it's a conference and so on, it's around that framework, and then you can iterate from that. I thought it took me a while to figure that out, but once you do, things click.
I just think, I mean, hindsight's a great thing, right? And I remember being in academia, and I spoke to a very, very senior professor, and just in passing, I said, he goes, well, what would you want to do post PhD then? This was at the stage of writing.
Yeah.
I go, you know what, in the future, I'd love to run my own company. I thought in some form of consulting in 10, 15 years down the line. And then it was instantly, he just said to me, oh, that's no easy thing, that's no joke. And I was like, oh, I'm taken back by that. Like, you've already knocked me back. And then there was another instance where I mentioned an interview for a company, and straight away the person went, oh, that's just sales, isn't it? And looking down on it, and because I was leaving academia for what was deemed to be just sales. As a founder, I've come to realize sales is like a separate entity in itself. You can have an individual PhD in selling and still have a million and billion things to learn and get better at. It's such a skill. It is such an art. And the people that I follow on LinkedIn who are great sales individuals are only just getting better, and they're learning more and more. Mm-hmm. And so that all contributes to this storytelling art and this framework as well, in terms of the ability to sell, because you're selling yourself to an investor. It's sales. You're selling your service to a client, a customer, anything along these lines. Mm-hmm. It's all selling to a degree.
It is. And I remember from the Y Combinator, I did the startup school last summer, and one of the key metrics for how they pick founders, they look for something called the founder market fit. You would think it's the technology. It's not the technology, because the chances are you're going to pivot so many times before your final product. It's about the founder and the team and their ability to pivot and grow. And the number one hurdle that technical founder have is the sales part.
Yeah.
And the chances are, if you're starting, you're going to be the salesperson. So the sooner you learn how to master the art of sales, the better off you are. And I myself had a little bit of what I call unlearning to do around sales, because you have like perhaps from ingrained cultural stuff or what have you, we don't train, if you're in the technical field, on how to sell things. You're what gets as they say, what gets rewarded gets done. You have the carrots, which is like papers and research and data and so on. So you focus on that. You don't focus on the sales component of your work. So I'm learning that it's not about selling something, but it's about the value I'm bringing to that person. And if I don't, they will still be stuck in the status quo, and they don't even know it. So doing that really removed that block about sales in my mind.
Yeah, just to build on that, there was a we've all heard of the classic "sell me this pen," and I saw a really
that's
funny.
Why I put the pen up.
yeah. That's what it reminded me of. It's triggered that memory, and there was a really interesting and funny. I think it was like a joke video, where in an interview, made-up interview, the interviewer goes, "All right, if you're so good, sell me this pen."
Yeah.
And the individual picks up the pen, and they go, the first question they ask is, "Do you need a pen?" And the response is, "No, I don't need a pen." And the interviewee goes, "Well, you're not my target market. You're not my target audience then. My targets are the ones who actually need a pen." And the interviewer is just like, that's a good point. I didn't expect that. You're hired. So it starts with actually sell to the right people, right?
Exactly. And in addition to finding the right people to sell, you need to have a system to rule out the ones that are not a good fit. So that's why, and that's probably 90% of your target. So you're looking at that 5 to 10% to focus your energy on. What are the other mindset adjustments you had to go through moving from academia into becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think that the one of the biggest ones is I wouldn't say it's an adjustment, but to build on, because you lay very solid foundations in academia as a PhD with this, the ability to work alone and be lonely and be comfortable in that uncomfortable feeling of
Mm,
constantly just feeling like you're alone. Even though you're surrounded in academia with other PhDs, they've got their own projects. Nobody's PhD is the same, even
mhm,
experimentally. In entrepreneurship, it is amplified by a lot, especially as a solo founder, it is
yeah,
amplified, which is why things like the Founder Sunday Network, there's also Founders Taboo, which I found to talk about founders' mental health. These sorts of networks and resources are
mhm,
amazing. And connecting and just having conversations with fellow founders and
yeah,
hearing about their journey as a startup in the early days, or all the way through, depending on who they are, to their fourth,
yeah,
fifth company if they're serial entrepreneurs. Um, that ability to build on the feeling of being alone and being comfortable with it, in a sense of understanding when it starts to affect me, the
yeah,
loneliness, and then going out and messaging a friend or reaching out to
right,
people on LinkedIn or going for a walk and run, identifying that red flag, like, hey, I'm no longer, because everybody's got a threshold. We all have
yeah,
thresholds, right? So I can't say, hey, I'm going to lock myself in this room for 4 days straight and work on my startup. It doesn't work like that.
yeah,
I could maybe do 4 hours in a row. That's
and
at a
then take a
push,
walk. Yeah,
and then I need to take a break, and or even the day off. That's it for me, done.
yeah.
So that was like the next big tip, which is that we take it for granted in academia as PhDs, our ability to work on our own or to work
We
in
can go
isolation.
under a rock and like
Yeah,
get get stuff done.
yeah, and
Yeah,
we absolutely do get it done. Like, just think back to department presentations or deadlines or
yeah,
conferences, poster presentations, talks. I
yeah,
guarantee you were there non-stop getting something done and isolated yourself for a concentrated period to get it done,
yeah,
and then went, okay, that's it. Like
yeah.
now, though, I have a much healthier approach to it in
Hmm.
terms of the balance and identifying when to rest. So, for example, today before this, I know I was fatigued and tired, so I took a
Hmm.
nap for about 30, 40 minutes because it
Hmm.
was needed.
Yeah.
And I now know that even after this live, I'll
Hmm.
take a break of 30, 40 minutes, and then I'll go back to finishing off some admin for the day because I
Yeah.
can cap off my day. So it's about working in these pockets, but it's just me doing it and building
Yeah.
on that working alone. Yeah.
Hmm. I think the ability to stay the course and put in the work consistently. I think the consistency also is key when you are a PhD because you are working on a project that's long term. And that gives you that ability to build, like have building blocks that mount to something that you don't see the result of it right away. And that's a typical startup. You're building those puzzle pieces. By itself, it doesn't make sense, but you know it's part of a bigger puzzle picture. And believing that, I get asked a lot, we don't see the result right away. I'm like, I do have it. When I zoom out, I can see it. I can even picture it. And I know this is a building block towards that. And believing that you are working towards a longer term goal is key, and believing in yourself because many times people around you don't believe. You have to be really, really strong in terms of having the confidence in not only yourself, but in what you're doing. Because there will be a lot of naysayers,
Yeah.
and you kind of block these out and focus and hunker down and put in the work.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned this because I had a conversation the other day with my mum, and it was around exactly this topic. It was to the point of just having this unrelenting belief in yourself, and
Exactly.
that you're not seeing what's classic. I think the classic metrics these days are floods of money coming into the bank account, promotions, buying things
Yeah.
materialistically, but everything really in the startup world can move the pin forwards, which is why I reflect on a Sunday, right, to make it efficient and learn in a sense of the conversations that I have. Like a friend of mine the other day said, don't forget, every conversation you have is one, a practice on selling, but you're selling as well
You are.
yourself, your services, and you never know who you're speaking to.
You
That
don't.
irrelevant person that you deem and you've taken the call could have an investor that they mention you to, and then that's it.
Exactly.
That's somebody who invests in you based on the call that you had with their friend or that person. And so
Mm-hmm.
all of this comes into it with the correct mindset and that unrelenting belief that yes, you're putting, every morning you get up, you're putting the bricks down, and
Mm-hmm.
then you see like this outline structure of a house, and then you go to bed the next day, there's nothing there. You're starting from scratch, you're trying again and again, but eventually you realize you weren't actually building this house, you were building like the Taj Mahal, or you were
Yeah.
building something greater and more prolific than just this house. But in the moment it looks like, oh, I'm just trying to build this house and it's
Yeah.
taking forever,
Mm-hmm.
but in
Yeah.
time it will come.
Yeah. To build up on that, in terms of the brick example, uh, in terms of correlating that to the mindset, um, one person who was three people, they were like brick building, like, and somebody asked them, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm putting out brick for a sidewalk." Another person came and they asked a second person, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm building this place of worship." And a third person, when they asked them, they're like, "I'm building this place that's gonna strengthen our community to help." So it's beyond that the brick itself. It's the
Yeah,
impact of what you're doing, what it will enable, not only directly for your target customers or target audience, but what will enable them to do, and the ripple effect it will have. So I always keep that in mind, that what you do is not just that immediate, like brick, you know, brick by
yeah,
brick, but what it mounts to. Not like in a year, not two, maybe in 10 plus years.
yeah. It's having that vision, and it's what someone said to me with another project I'm looking to build and work on. I spoke with somebody who was an old colleague, and they said to me, "You've got this vision. Like, I'm on board. This sounds as cool as hell. Like, it's great. Like, you've got this vision though that I just love." And I was like, "That's really interesting because it's something that I suppressed for a long time. This ability to have this vision and say it out loud, because in the world or society or in academia you get bombarded, you get told no, you need to conform and stick to your experimental
Yeah,
protocol, writing a grant, being a lecturer, a fellowship
yeah,
lecturer, apply for more grants, tenureship if you're lucky, and then professorship, and you've made
yeah,
it, that's it, well done, pat on the back, and then you retire whenever. And it's a case of, yeah, but that's not enough. I want to impact more. I
more
want to
people.
meet great people with my mindset. And I was always thinking for many, many years since I was young, surely I can't be the only person with this mindset. Surely I
Yeah,
can't. And then I walked in as a founder in entrepreneurship. And it turns out a lot of the great people,
yeah,
such
they
as
have the
yourself or
same
the Founders
mindset.
Sunday group, they
Yeah,
have the same mindset. And I'm like,
they're
oh, where
like
have
the
you all
crazy
been all this
ones.
time? Yeah.
We're like the crazy ones. Yeah, what was it? Steve Jobs that says, to the dreamers, the crazy ones who believe they can change
Yes.
the world. And they do. They
Yeah.
do because, they think different. I'm not being paid by Apple for think different, or just a full disclaimer. But I think having a community that gets what you're going through, that gets the challenges, that knows, even supports you and gives you heads up what you need to be prepared for before
Yeah.
you get there, so you're ready before you gave the example that I'm going over the bridge and there was like the gaps. Sometimes you need to see what's beyond that bridge so you can
Yes.
plan for it. So having those communities is important. Founder Sunday is one of them. In my case, it's the women entrepreneurs in healthcare and tech, because there are so few. And in many cases, the funding rate is so low for women that I thought, I'm going to do
Yeah.
something about this. Let's build a community and support each other. Um, a lot of women entrepreneurs, they are in their age bearing age group, and therefore they are also caregivers. and you add to the entrepreneurial, challenges, and on top of that, being a primary caregiver in many cases makes you super efficient. There's no room for fluff, and you get you get things done in a very short period of time in sprints. So, and that's I found that's a good way of making progress, to be present in that particular you know um, stage, in that particular moment, knowing that this is the action item I need to focus on to move the needle is key, because
Yeah.
there's so many distractions. My question to you: how do you deal with distractions and shiny objects?
Oh, I do love shiny objects. I'm
You
not going
do.
to lie. So it is quite difficult. It's a case of reining myself in, and I'll go back to, I'm a firm believer, Nadia, in the simple things in life during pressured and complex situations work. So I did martial arts for a number of years, and it was
Mhm.
always during a pressured situation, the simple things in training worked the best, not the flowery movements or anything.
Yeah,
And I take that philosophy and mindset into entrepreneurship in particular. And that when I have an idea of something and I think, oh, this is cool, oh, this is great, it'll be a great thing down the line. I think
yeah.
the way that I heard it was Stephen Bartlett, the British entrepreneur, said it. I'll
Hmm.
put it on my idea shelf. And then
Yeah,
if it still bugs me in a few days, I'll take it off my idea shelf and I'll add to it. And
yeah,
then by then something else comes up. He goes, I could have hundreds of things on my idea shelf,
yeah,
but the differentiator is, do I take that one thing and I'm building on it more and more? In the moments of building on it, what I'm doing is actually building my business plan or pitch deck. And then he goes, I'll build a quick deck. So I reflect on this, and is a primarily reason, and I fully recommend people to, if they wish to journal. I have a journal as well,
hmm,
which I write in, and just to think, oh, I thought about this and I really want to move forwards with it. And then I'll literally write in the journal, but why? What am I benefiting from this? What do others benefit? And how does this move the pin forwards? And then I've
hmm,
ended certain journal entries with question marks. And then 2, 3
hmm.
days later, because it's working in my unconscious
Yeah,
and subconscious as well, the answer will come to the surface and be like, actually, this wasn't an efficient way, or I'll seek out expertise. And this is where the network comes in, because now I've built up a network.
hmm,
I know I can go to these people who can give me the answers to the questions I have. So now I know that actually that idea that I had, or this shiny object that I wanted
yeah,
to pick up, isn't that shiny. It was a diamond disguised as it was a stone disguised with foil that I thought
yeah,
was a diamond,
hmm,
when actually the diamond is in the distance. I ask one expert or one experienced individual and I build on it more and more. And naturally it starts to form a group or a team.
hmm.
And next
Yep,
thing you know, I'm building a secondary company or something along these lines. So yeah, that's how
hmm.
I differentiate between the two. It's been interesting, but the writing process of clearing my mind, of
I think
working
it
through
helps.
it,
Yeah, I do
it
that
helps
too.
so much.
I
Yeah.
do that too through my LinkedIn newsletter, and that's how it started. The ideas that I have and the common questions that I get, I thought, okay, I'm the bottleneck if I'm answering the same question more than twice. Let me just
Yeah.
create a newsletter about it, and it will help more people. And it resonated with a lot of people. My newsletter has over 6,000 subscribers within 8 months or so. And so I'm aware of the shiny object syndrome too. And it's always like, can I do this? Can I do that? Especially when you are pre-revenue and you know that in life sciences or tech, the product development cycle is long. So you try to kind of diversify, but you keep in mind that it doesn't take too much energy from your North Star. So
Yeah.
that's always like the balancing act I'm trying to do at any given time. Let's go back to point science analytics. Where are you at stage wise, and what would be your needs in the coming, year or so that will move the needle for you, for the audience who I highly recommend, if you are in the space, to reach out to Ricky. And this is how you can reach out to him and book a call with Ricky. Um, so while you you say your ask, I would put how they can touch base with you.
Yeah, so the touch base is easy. On my profile, it's a link there that's present to book a call, and we can talk neuroscience or any of the needs that anybody has. I think the best thing now for the Point Science Analytics and myself in terms of direction is one, my continued learning as a CEO, as a newfound founder, literally, it was company number one. I hope that continues to whenever the end of time is, or in particular my time. And the next stage is the pitch deck for the pre-seed raise for the tech is ready. I have a call tomorrow with a CEO of another tech company who made a really good seed round raise, who ended up being a mentor without kind of being a mentor, if that makes sense, or
Yeah.
formally being asked. They've just happened to have fallen in that position, and they're incredible. So that's getting that deck up to scratch, and beginning investment rounds in the next few months. It's good because I love to speak with a diverse group of individuals and crowds. And so when I have calls with investors as potential investors or as clients, customers of our services, I mention every aspect. And the amount of times they've said, "Oh, when your deck is ready, could you send it us? Could you send us we'd like to have a look, actually." And this all helps. So that will move the needle forwards massively,
Yeah.
beginning a raise and beginning the build of the AI platform, because now I have people on a wait list
That's
and I have
awesome.
feedback. And it's amazing to know that there's people out there that do need this, but they
Yeah.
want a specific version or iteration of it. And I've gained the feedback and understanding of that, and it will continue to evolve and change.
That's
And then,
awesome.
the final one is probably just the neuroscience consulting calls I'm doing for investors to help with their technical due diligence, and looking at pitch decks, red flags, future problems,
Yeah.
extra data points, and for those in biotech who need a different look at their data and more insights or help with preclinical experimental planning. So yeah,
That's
that's me.
awesome. And I think having that, the Neuralink getting that FDA approval, the first one for like brain implants, I think there will be more need for neuroscience expertise in the future. So if there's anybody out there in that space and need help, reach out to Ricky. And any three final tips for PhDs turning entrepreneurs that you'd like to share with the audience as closing comments?
Yes, number one, network before you need to network. Always do that. It's key, it's paramount, it's necessary, it's needed.
Yeah.
Always do it before you need it. Number two, seek help when you're unsure. I think as human beings, it's difficult for us to seek help. We think we
Yeah.
can do it on our own to a point. And I'd say number three, know when to rest. Know when to quit the day and when the day is done, because there is nothing worse than doing more work, making errors, making mistakes, and having to repeat things because
Yeah.
you should have stopped at that point.
Yeah.
And I think back to my PhD and the experiments, which I tried to do more of at 6 p.m. start an experiment, went wrong, made a mistake, have to repeat it, and I've just
Yeah.
wasted 3 hours. So yeah,
Mhm.
learn from my mistakes and lessons.
Yeah.
Rest is
So
paramount
listen
in this field.
to your body when to
Yes,
rest.
completely. The body and the mind, please do listen, and the gut as well. Listen
And the
to all
gut.
of
Yeah.
your
We're run with
instincts.
by our guts.
That's
That
it.
is awesome. That was an awesome conversation. The fastest hour because we
I
despite
know it's gone quick.
the initial hiccup, we handled it like pros. So, anyone who is not following or connected to Ricky, I encourage you to do so. And if you are in the space as an investor or biotech needing help with the simplifying science, you can reach out to Ricky on his LinkedIn profile. I'm Dr. Nadia Boutawi. I help entrepreneurs move their innovation to the market, and I'm very passionate about helping women entrepreneurs grow both their leadership and their business. And you can find me on LinkedIn. Follow my group, Women Entrepreneur in Healthcare Tech. Go ahead and follow um, Point Science
Point science
Analytics
analytics,
and
yes.
the PhD pack. And if you want some reflection, deep reflections about entrepreneurial journey, check out Sunday Reflection by Ricky. And with that, you can join me on an audio event I'm hopping on right now about essentials for funding for startups and entrepreneurs. And it's a LinkedIn audio with Dr. Marquisia Pierce. I highly encourage you to join us there too. Thank you so much, Ricky, for your time. I appreciate our conversations always, and reach out anytime.
Thank you, Nadia. It's been a pleasure. Speak soon.
Pleasure. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.